So sticking with the theme today, in describing the roots of his dedication to his sport, NBA MVP Bill Walton said of his childhood, "I lived to play basketball. Growing up as a kid, Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics were my favorite team. The way they played, the teamwork, the sacrifice, the commitment, the joy, the camaraderie, the relationship with their fans. Regardless of how you feel about the Boston Celtics, most airline pilots tell a similar story about their dedication to flying. Many of us have felt determined and even destined to get airborne for as long as you can remember. And while we may not have anticipated it until we became, appreciated it until we became airline pilots and ALPA members, many of the same characteristics Walton uses to describe the team that inspired him also apply to our union. Teamwork, sacrifice, commitment, and camaraderie. The capability and confidence that comes from camaraderie, knowing your fellow crew members, knowing that they have your back and are by your side, are mainstays. The chief support behind ALPA's safety, security, and pilot assistance work. This year, the forum and its focus on safety is especially timely given the Asiana Flight 214 accident that occurred a week and a half ago. Almost immediately, well, let me correct that. Immediately, ALPA was on the scene. We had volunteers on the scene, and we did everything we could to support that crew and the NTSB investigation. I want to again express our alarm and really a little bit disappointment at the NTSB's leadership release of incomplete data in the near immediate aftermath of this tragedy. As you know, that fueled rampant speculation about the cause of the accident. And without all the facts surrounding a catastrophic event like this, partial or incomplete information out of context can lead to erroneous conclusions and misguided assessments of the crew's intentions and actions. The unintended consequence, I believe, we believe, is actually undercutting safety. So I want to be clear. ALPA, like other organizations with airline safety as a bedrock value, views any accident with a single objective: to find out every link in this complex chain of events that would have mitigated so that we could ensure that this doesn't happen again. Obviously, a well-rested, fully qualified, professional airline flight crew with decades of experience and tens and thousands of flight hours in multiple aircraft does not set out to purposely fly into a seawall. The key question remains, why did the events unfold as they did? We understand that an organization's leader is ultimately responsible for and accountable for the actions of that organization's members. But what we've seen in this instance is an organization that has chosen to deviate from internationally accepted and time-proven investigated processes and procedures in favor of increased media exposure and sensationalism. And when we, as a lone entity, pointed this out, we were labeled with we were against transparency. And each of you know that couldn't be farther from the truth. We were staying true to our precepts, and those precepts were what happened in this accident so that we could prevent the next accident from ever occurring. We call on the NTSB to evaluate the proper balance of media interaction and public disclosure without hampering the quality investigative process that the NTSB has been known for. As this investigation moves forward, we're urging our government and industry safety partners around the world to redouble their efforts to gather the full body of factual knowledge necessary and release that information accordingly. I want to stress, I want to underscore that ALPA fully supports open, objective, and thorough investigations to find all factors involved in the accident, not simply the most convenient to identify quickly. Our goal, as it's always been, is to prevent such an accident from ever happening again. Anything less must not be tolerated. That goal is at the core of ALPA's more than 80-year history of safety work. Whether the issue is emerging now or one that ALPA helped resolve a half-century ago, I'm always impressed every time I witness the expertise and effort that our union brings to bear on virtually every issue that affects our industry or our profession. So let me give you a few examples. On August 1st, the U.S. airline first officers will be required to meet more rigorous minimum qualifications than the ones in the current rule. The new requirements are designed to enhance the safety of the U.S. airline industry and should also add value to pilot airman certificates. As you may remember, 4 separate fatal accidents involving U.S. airlines over a few years prompted the U.S. Congress to address minimum qualifications for airline pilots. The results included language addressing those qualifications contained in the Airline Safety and FAA Extension Act of 2010. The legislation mandates that an airline first officer must hold an airline transport pilot airman certificate to serve as a flight crew member in FAR Part 121 airline flight operations. Congress gave the FAA some flexibility and allowed it to give flight hour credit for specific academic training that improves the safety of the pilot. As a result, the FAA created a group of government and industry experts known as an Aviation Rulemaking Committee, or ARC, to recommend a definition of specific academic training and recommend the amount of flight time credit that would be given for such training. ALPA representatives played a key role in this ARC. Led by Captain Chuck Hogeman, ALPA's aviation safety chair, our union has been engaged and involved in the ARC every step of the way to make sure ALPA pilots' interests are considered and factored in. Last week, the FAA issued its final rule, which, as expected, mandates that an FAR Part 121 first officer hold an Air Transport Pilot Certificate, or the new restricted ATP, that can be obtained at a lower hour thresholds and age. I'm pleased to report that at ALPA's urging, the FAA has not changed the type of medical certificate that will apply under the new rule. First officers operating in Part 121 domestic service will still be able to fly while holding a second-class medical certificate. And as I mentioned, ALPA supports this FAA action to enhance safety of our industry. We've been working closely with the agency and stakeholders throughout air transportation to ensure the pilots' views are considered and that our perspectives are counted in the process. Now, I hope that each of you have seen ALPA's latest report called Leveling the Playing Field for U.S. Airlines and Their Employees. In it, the Airline Pilots Association makes a broad range of policy recommendations to give U.S. airlines and their employees a fair chance to compete in the global marketplace. One key issue that we highlight is that the U.S. airlines actually get taxed twice for next-gen. Now, as you know, U.S. airlines pay taxes on tickets, they cover landing fees, and are charged numerous other taxes. And at the same time, the U.S. airlines are paying to install mandated technologies on their aircraft to enable them to take advantage of next-gen technology and procedures. Because of this, one important element of ALPA's policy, our policy framework for the future, is to recommend that given that the federal government clearly benefits on the front end from the airline's next-gen investments, these savings should be passed on to the airlines. Now, to that end, ALPA is calling on government leaders to create grants, tax credits, subsidies, or other incentives to encourage the airlines to equip their aircraft to help our industry realize the full potential of next-gen. On another priority issue for ALPA, we continue to advance the Safe Skies Act to bring all airline pilots, including those who fly for all cargo airlines, under the Federal Aviation Administration's pilot fatigue rule. It's unacceptable where we're at now, and we're not going to give up. It shouldn't have been this hard in the first place, but we will prevail because we have a true argument, we are determined, and we have a plan. Hundreds of ALPA pilots have spoken with one voice through ALPA's call to action, and we've made more than 200 visits to the Hill to let Congress know ALPA's commitment to one level of safety. The legislation has nearly 30 co-sponsors so far, and we're working hard to win additional lawmaker support. Now, regarding Canadian flight and duty time regulations, Transport Canada is in the process of making the final recommendations for drafting new rules. ALPA will continue to fully be engaged in the process to ensure that new science-based regulations for all flight crews in Canada are adopted. In contrast, regulators in Europe are on the verge of taking a step backwards. Instead of moving forward and adopting science-based regulations, they're moving to relax existing regulations. I'm going to tell you, this is what happens when the pilot community is not fully engaged with regulators in a productive, proactive, data-driven manner. And I urge, again, that our counterparts in Europe take pause and reassess their positions and adopt a cooperative, science-based process. In the security arena, one of ALPA's top concerns is the administration's proposal to eliminate funding for the Federal Flight Deck Officer Program and the threat that it would mean to the security of the U.S. transportation and airline passengers. You know, it's truly beyond comprehension that at the same time the administration's budget proposal recognizes the value of risk-based security, it proposes to eliminate funding for the FFDO program, a proven, cost-effective program that enhances risk-based security across the U.S. air transportation system. The FFDO program, as I don't need to remind this group, is staffed by thousands of fully trained and deputized ALPA pilots. These individuals are dedicated volunteers who make great personal and professional sacrifices to secure the nation's flight decks and protect hundreds of thousands of flights. Through the hard work of Captain Fred Eisler and ALPA's Aviation Safety Group, we lobby in the halls of Congress as well as the more than 2,000 ALPA members who have joined our call to action. Our union has made it clear its commitment on this matter to continue and to build on the contribution that the FFDO program makes to achieving risk-based aviation security. As part of doing all we can do to secure the U.S. air transportation system for passengers, crews, and cargo shippers, our government leaders must fully and appropriately fund the FFDO program. Now, moving to the third pillar of ALPA's air safety organization, our Pilot Assistance Program Chairman, Captain Jerry McDermott, has continued to achieve remarkable results in aeromedical matters, Canadian pilot assistance, and critical incidents response in our critical incidents response program, the Human Intervention and Motivation Study, and professional standards. Each and every day, ALPA's pilot assistance volunteers and professional staff represent our union and forge new ways to serve as a respected resource and committed colleague in helping other organizations across our industry and around the globe in pilot assistance. An example, ALPA worked with NATCA, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, to create their professional standards program. We appreciate very much that NACA has acknowledged our contribution to their effort. We look forward to sharing our expertise whenever it might prove helpful to other organizations seeking to enhance their professional standards work. On this same theme, ALPA would like to see every airline create a collaborative professional standards program. If you're here today representing an airline that doesn't yet have a program, ALPA's professional standards, volunteers, and staff will do whatever it takes to help you. Also on the subject of pilot assistance, ALPA's Critical Incident Response Program training is respected worldwide and sets the standard in our industry for responding to crisis events. Our union created the CIRP concept for flight crews, and ALPA training materials are now used by airlines in several countries. One of ALPA's new strategic initiatives is to urge the FAA to create an occupational safety and health program. ALPA's pilots and staff have reached out to the FAA flight standards leaders and are working with ALPA members in Canada to capitalize on the occupational safety and health efforts already in place for airline pilots there. In May 2013, at our Pilot Assistance Forum, which was a huge success by any metric, this forum drew more than 200 participants from around the globe with an agenda that was packed with the world's leading experts in the aeromedical arena, critical incidents response, HIMSS, professional standards, and Canadian pilots' assistance. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in talking about the Asiana accident, ALPA never wavers in its commitment to take every possible action to learn from incidents and accidents with the goal of preventing another tragedy. To this end, our union's Accident Investigation Board is heavily involved in the investigation of the 2011 First Air fatal accident near Resolute Bay in far northern Canada. With the Japanese investigation into the 2009 crash of a FedEx aircraft in Narita. And also we are involved in a large number of other accident and serious incident investigations. Lessons that we're learning from those events are translated into the Air Safety Organization's continuing efforts at safety improvements in every aspect of airline operations. At the end of May, the Airline Pilots Association held a landmark conference in Ottawa on operations at remote airports. The conference was spearheaded by the ALPA President's Committee for Remote Operations, which is chaired by Captain Peter Black. The committee is charged with reviewing and recommending safety and operational improvements in the far north of Canada and the United States. The turnout for this very well-received Ottawa conference included top-tier representatives of government, of airlines, of labor, as well as legislative representatives. Shifting to another subject, which is led by First Officer Mark Rogers, ALPA's Dangerous Good Program Director, our union continues to drive to ensure that lithium battery shipments by air are as safe as possible. You know, we're gratified, and we led the effort, that ICAO provisions, which went into effect on January 1, contain new requirements for international shipments of packages containing more than 8 cells or 2 batteries. The new rules include training for the shipper, the operator, dangerous good labels, acceptance checks, preloading and unloading inspections, and informing the pilot in command of the aircraft of the lithium batteries aboard his aircraft. ALPA pilots that are flying international routes, but also some flying domestic operations, may now see more information regarding lithium batteries on their aircraft, which is the reflection of the new ICAO rules, rather than the result of greater numbers of battery shipments. In addition to the publication ALPA released this spring regarding the safety consideration of air shipments of lithium batteries, our union recently issued a bulletin to our members about the new ICAO requirements. While these ICAO requirements will enhance safety and are encouraging, they remind us that the United States now has the dubious distinction of having substandard regulations for protecting passengers, crews, and people on the ground from the dangers posed by the shipment of lithium batteries. You know, my experience, and many of you, has been that the United States has a proud history of setting the gold standard for aviation safety, not tolerating substandard approaches to taking on known safety risks. While ALPA continues to urge the United States to create stricter guidelines for the safe transport by air of lithium batteries that go beyond ICAO provisions, at a minimum, the U.S. government must bring its regulations up to par with the global standards set by ICAO. Teamwork, sacrifice, commitment, and camaraderie. These ideals set ALPA apart and make us strong. They echo through all the aviation safety, security, and pilot assistance work that I just mentioned. To emphasize that point, we've put together a brief video that captures the commitment, the collaboration, and the passion that drives our union. Please direct your attention to the screen.
The Airline Pilots Association International, along with our industry and government partners, is constantly working to ensure the safety and security of the largest and most robust aviation system in the world. Working together with ALPA by your side, we have delivered such improvements as ground proximity warning systems in large and small aircraft,
2500
heads-up display, known crew member in the restricted area identity card programs, full-scale airport emergency drills, including evacuation demonstration and aircraft certification, wind shear detection equipment, complemented by proper pilot training to escape microbursts, better seatbelts and the fasten seatbelt signs in passenger airliners, the Critical Incident Response Program, runway safety areas and arrestor beds, a shorter distance between you and the nearest emergency exit on passenger airliners, the traffic alert and collision avoidance system, secondary cockpit barriers, aircraft accident investigation courses, lightning strike protection for airliner fuel tank, safe noise abatement procedures, security training courses including crew member self-defense, onboard crew rest facilities, the Airport Safety Liaison Program, data sharing programs like ASAP and FOQA, the Professional Standards Program, safer shipments of hazardous materials, direct pilot controller communication with air traffic control centers, improved passenger and crew member seat strength and flammability resistance of cabin materials, federal flight deck officers, and runway approach lighting systems. As the industry prepares for the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead, it will take more collaboration with all stakeholders working toward the same goal to complete the next round of great collaborative initiatives such as enhanced surface surveillance, pilot controller data link communications, risk-based security, next-gen implementation including the development of RNAV and RNP, more accurate aircraft surveillance and positioning, improved pilot training and qualification standards and state-of-the-art pilot training tools and methods, safely implementing remotely piloted aircraft into the National Airspace System, and electronic flight bags. Our dedicated pilot representatives and professional staff strive to ensure that passengers and cargo arrive to their destination safe and sound. Together, with ALPA by your side, we will ensure North America's aviation system remains the worldwide leader in safety and security.
The resolve and determination of ALPA's pilot volunteers and professional staff can be found in no other organization, and I take great pride in this proof that each and every day ALPA is by your side.